Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. Joe Munoz, 1StepPrep.com. Coming to you today, I want to talk to you about the 4 levels of competence. And this is something that I usually present on day 1 to flight crews on day 1 of their type rating training, just so they understand kind of what the level of expectation is, which would be level 3 out of the 4 steps of competence, right? Now, another thing is that this ladder of competence, if you will, that I'm going to take you through here in a minute, really ties into tasks that will come up on the flight deck later on that you need to be consciously and unconsciously aware of, right? So these are the things I want to talk to you about. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you. By the way, I'm utilizing a meeting platform right now that if you like this type of interaction live with myself or with Juan, then we could certainly set up a live oral prep or sim prep or something of that nature in this fashion. So what you're looking at right now is basically, I want to draw here for you the 4, what I consider to be 4 levels of competence, right? So it's kind of a ladder, and you know, I'm drawing it on a touch screen with my fingers, so forgive my poor line drawing technique. But you know, basically when you show up for training, you're over here in what I call UI, okay? And I'll discuss what this means in just a minute. And then you're going to get to CI, right? Then you get to CC, and then you're going to get to UC. Now you're probably thinking, what are all these letters, and you know, what does this mean? What is this ladder, right? So on the far left over here, basically UI refers to the fact that you're unconsciously incompetent. Now what I mean by that, what that means is that you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and that's a dangerous position to be in. And so oftentimes when you show up for type rating training, you will get a stack of books. Maybe they're electronic, or maybe they're physical copies of the books, right? 10,000 pages, and they just drop them on your desk and say, good luck, you're on your own, right? At least that's what it feels like. And so now you look at all this content material, and you're like, I don't know where to start, man. Where do I start? And so you don't know where to start because you don't know what you don't know. Now, what happens at the next stage is where I'm going to basically say, look, what you need to do is study memory items, limitations, lights, and switches. And I can show you where you're going to find that information, right? What manual or reference will provide you with that. So now you're going to go from here being what we call unconsciously incompetent to a state of being consciously incompetent. In other words, at least now I know what I don't know. I may not know all the memory items, limitations, lights, and switches. I may not know systems. I may not know how to read a QRH. I may not know the profiles, the call-outs, the sequence of events for the phases of flight, but I at least know where I can find it. And so this is the stage that usually on day 1, we can quickly elevate you to that level. Now, as training progresses, eventually you're going to get to this level over here of conscious competence, which means that you can now perform the tasks, assuming you're 100% focused on them. And ultimately, later on with experience, you get to this upper level here, which is unconscious competence. Now, what that means is you could actually perform tasks without physically thinking about it. So think about for a minute. I want to give you an example here. When you were just a little kid, right, 4 or 5 years old, you're learning how to tie your shoe, for example, and your parents come in and they want to ask you a question, or they're talking to you, and you're like, don't talk to me because I got to tie my shoe, right? And so it's like you can't tie your shoe and hold a conversation or chew gum at the same time. And so the level of conscious competence, that's a good analogy to refer to that, right? So basically it's like I know what my call-outs are, right? I know what my flows are, but don't interrupt me at all, because if you do give me some type of distraction, then now I have to start all over again, because you just haven't had the time. The repetition has not been significant enough and in ample volumes enough in order to get yourself elevated to the level above, which is the unconscious competence, at which point there you're going to perform tasks without even thinking about them, right? Because you're unconsciously doing flows while consciously holding a conversation or dealing with the distraction. Now, I bring this up because, let me erase some of the stuff. The reason I bring all this up is because a lot of times, and fairly recently, I've had several cases where I'm working with students that are on the level of conscious competence, but anything that distracts them, basically they got to start over, right? And so I want to bring that up in discussion now, because look, you will have distractions. You will. You're going to have distractions. And so the thing is, for every phase of flight, we have various things that need to be, various tasks that need to be completed, yeah? So like, for example, I'm going to just put a P here for pre-flight, and then we have the taxi phase, right? Then we have the takeoff phase, and then we're going to have the climb phase, okay? And we've got all these phases of flight, so to speak, yeah? So for each one of these things, for the pre-flight, for example, I got to do a first officer pre-flight, first officer pre-flight. Let me just see if I can mark it down here. So we got to do a first officer pre-flight. We got to do a captain's pre-flight. We got to do an FMS loading, right? We got to do a departure briefing. Okay, we got to check the fuel balance and load. Then for the taxi, we got to run a flow. We got to do a checklist. We got to call for clearance. Then for takeoff, we got to. You follow my drift. There's just for every phase of flight, there's certain tasks in the flight deck that need to be accomplished. And now the thing is, down here, you're going to have air traffic control. That's my stick figure if you like that. Then you're going to have dispatcher, right? Then you're going to have flight attendant. Then you're going to have passenger interruptions. Then you're going to have your company personnel, right? Then you're going to have the fueler. Then you're going to have the baggage handler. Then you're going to have the, I mean, the list goes on and on. You know what I mean? The gate agent comes in, the maintenance, if I can say that. So the bottom line is that you are having to, when you're on a level of conscious competence, you're dealing with all these tasks over here. And then all of a sudden you get these distractions over here. People become the distractions. The operational environment becomes the distractions. And so what you have to do leading into your type rating training, and even more importantly, OE, is that you really need to elevate your level of proficiency with the flight deck tasks, with the flows, the call outs, the profiles, right? The checklist responses. Ideally, we have these items on a level of unconscious competence. All right, and by bringing this to a level of unconscious competence where you can actually do it without thinking about it, now you're in a better position, you're more well prepared to deal with the distractions, deal with the people, which ultimately is the operational environment, right? So try to get yourself to that level. It will take time. There's really no magic solution to that apart from repetition, repetition, repetition. Do it as much as you can, as often as you can, and certainly do it before you show up for training. Joe Munoz here from 1StepPrep.com. Juan and Joe, the J&J team, your friends in type rating training program success. I hope you're with us June 29th, okay, at 10 a.m., 1StepPrep TV. At 11 a.m., we're going to be doing a members-only webinar. And later on, we're announcing in July, July 20th, it will be a Friday, we will be doing a three-hour live training program, just like what we're doing here, on energy management and systems. So I'm going to be discussing the energy management, and Juan's going to be taking the systems part. So I hope you join us for that, and we look forward to having you in all of these live events that we're doing, and we hope to see you there and train with you.